Scarefest Radio is sponsored by Spirit Mechanics. For your spiritual health and well-being, find them on Facebook. MECHANIX. And by Coyote Chris Sutton, bringing light to the darkest places. CoyoteChris.com.
The opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Scarefest!
The guests of Scarefest Radio are selected and scheduled independently of the Scarefest Horror and Paranormal Convention. Appearances on this program do not necessarily reflect the itinerary of the convention.
And hello everyone and welcome to Scarefest Radio. Tonight's broadcast date originally was May 11th, 2018. By the time you hear this, who the hell knows? I'm a little shook tonight. We're doing this on... Okay, last week we talked about the new Scarefest computer that has been installed in here. Now we're doing it on brand new software, so we're just like flying by the seat of our pants. My co-host tonight is, of course, the tarot reader to the stars, Mr. Ken Boggle.
Howdy ho. How are you? How you doing, Wes?
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Now, wasn't that better? I think that sounds better than celebrity tarot card reader, because you said you don't like being celebrity.
Yeah, I hate that title. You know, but that's Layla.
Well, so now I'm just saying, change it, screw it, change it.
I like Tarot Boss. Kelly Schaefer gave me that one on Twitter, and I like that. Tarot Boss. It's a bit more mafia, I think.
Tarot Boss
yeah.
works. Okay, everybody, here's what's going on tonight. Of course, our guest is Mr. Chad Harlan. He's a fraud investigator. He's going to be talking about fraud and paranormal investigating. But he's already warned us, it's not what you think. It's not what you think. The important thing, the thing everybody, I just know you're just dying to hear about. Yes, we do in fact have three, count them three, trace, that's Spanish for you. I don't even know French, but Latin, it's like I. So, there. Three celebrity guest announcements for the Scarefest 2018, Scarefest 11, Scarefest Rebirth. And if you really want to be picky about it, I'll give you a hint. One of them, do I have an ink spot on my face? Anyway, the one of them is actually two people. That's why the little teaser in the Scarefest group about how many announcements we had. But we do have celebrity announcements. We will do our ticket giveaway. I think we'll do it on Facebook tonight because what the hell? I'm already everything's screwed up. What could go wrong going on Facebook on a Friday night? So load the Facebook group page that is the Scarefest Celebrity Horror Fandom and Halloween Expo. Did I get all that in there? Celebrity horror. I left out horror. Jesus H. Christ. Horror, Celebrity Fandom, and Halloween Expo. Anyway, the group, as we like to say. Find that linked all over the place. But join that group if you haven't already done so. That is where we do all of the ticket giveaways on Facebook. But that's what's going on tonight. And I'm really excited. Now, Mr. Chad Harlan, now this is your first year speaking at the Scarefest. You are, your topic is intriguing. Now, before we get into what you're actually be speaking about, being a fraud investigator, I was warning you before the show, I'm just really sick of all of these phone calls that I'm getting. First of all, do people really pay their taxes in iPhone gift cards?
Not legitimately, unfortunately. That is a very popular scam. Unfortunately, people do fall victim to it. The people who make those phone calls are very convincing, unfortunately.
See, now I get like I almost fell for one years and years ago because it was one of those, hey, you've won a boat. And they had a legal documentation. It was a boat, and all you have to do is like pay the registration on it. And it was like a 20-foot boat. Well, come to find out, there was a boat. They're freaking air mattresses, more or less. It's a rubber raft, and they were, So, in other words, I wouldn't have come out with nothing, but I did not fall for it. But some of the stuff that goes on, just like that, okay, I get it if it's an offer that's a little too good to be true and you fall for it, give away too much personal information, possibly the grandmother bailing their kid out of jail, their grandson. Okay, that's horrible, but we have to tell my mom all the time, quit telling, don't even tell them your name, fortunately she has like multiple grandkids, and they'll say, this is your grandson, and she'll say, which one? That one, that kind of stuff. So she hasn't fell for it. But one of the other one is, am I ever going to hear from the Nigerian prince?
Well, possibly, because there's a whole lot of them. There are a whole lot of people doing that, and a lot of them aren't even in Nigeria anymore. That scam has moved all over the world now. I think they've tracked a lot of it now to Russia and Jamaica and South America, and it's still all called the Nigerian scam, but it's all the same idea.
I actually, just to have fun with them, so many times I thought about, I just go to my bank and set up a bank account with absolutely no freaking money in it, as opposed to my other bank account that's just loaded.
Bragger.
But just because that's all we need is your bank account number and PIN and whatever else. So I've really thought, what the hell? Just give it to them and just see what the hell happens. And
well, it was in the paper today. Now they're moving to Bitcoin. So
see, now, fortunately, I'm at the age where that's not going to affect me at all. The chances of me buying some imaginary currency on the internet, I can't even wrap my head around what the hell it is. It's somebody literally said, let's print money on the internet. And I don't understand it. That's one of those things I will stay away from. Unfortunately, iPhone gift cards, I do understand what they are, but at the same time, see, that's the other thing that would stop me from getting scammed, because if I actually have to leave the house and go to the store, I mean, I can give you a check account or a bad debit card or whatever over the phone, but if I have to leave the house to pay your ass, the IRS would have to come to my door, let alone, go buy iPhone gift cards.
But they'll tell you how to buy them online too, and then transfer them. So they have an answer for everything.
Oh no! I'm hooked now.
They're all about customer service. You
they are. They will make it as convenient as they can for you.
But okay, now in all seriousness, in your day job, what type of fraud investigation are you actually doing?
Financial crimes. I've done various types of financial crimes throughout my career. Usually something involving kind of like what we're talking about, somebody who's been victimized by somebody trying to sell them something that they probably didn't need in the first place. Question here.
Have they changed it? Used to be any time that you signed a credit application, you actually had so much time to back out. In other words, like if you went in and the car dealer, like everybody used to freak out because certain car dealers would like, you just sign this, and I mean, I remember thinking, screw it, I'm going to sign it just to get out of here, then I'm going to call and cancel. But can you actually get out of legitimate, in other words, bad deals through legitimate companies?
I'm not an expert on all of the types, but there are different rescission periods on different credit products. Some products have no rescission period. You're on the hook as soon as you sign. But I would caution everybody to read that contract carefully. Make sure you know what the rescission period is when you enter into the agreement.
Of course, in my case, I have no money anyway, so my signature is the most valuable part of it, because that's one of these days I'm just going to be so famous, and people are going to be saying, "Look, I've got his autograph from 1982 on a bad credit application, on a cold check, on a cold check."
And frankly, that's what we tell a lot of people in some of the presentations I do is people don't care how much money you have; they care about your identity information, because they can make you have credit information later, as long as they have your information to go create the accounts themselves.
Oh, wait a minute. This might be a good thing for me. You're saying that I could let someone steal my identity, let them set up a bunch of credit cards, and then if I could just figure out how to get access to that line of credit, I might, because right now I got, I'll put it this way. My credit score, I don't even get the part that they give you for being alive. I'm at that, he's breathing, let's give him a point, whatever. So I might
I'd say at best that's a Russian roulette play.
Once again, what are they going to do? Ruin my credit? Anyway, so getting beyond that, let's tell us now, okay. When I heard what you were speaking about, the first thing that of course came to mind, that you already have given me kind of a heads up that I was totally off base. I think of fraud in the paranormal field, and I do tend to think of it from the side of people saying, "Yes, I'll cleanse your house for $300," or "Oh, you want to talk to your grandmother? Let's $300, whatever the number is." But that is not what you are speaking about.
That's not exactly what I've prepared this speech about, or this lecture about. Although I do think that's certainly a problem in this field and every other. It's not a whole lot different than what we were just talking about on financial crimes. If somebody's going to come in and try to convince you they're going to do something they're not going to do for you, they're victimizing you in just a different way. But what I've kind of prepared this lecture to kind of talk about is kind of the difference between data collection in an investigation, a red flag in an investigation, something you should follow up on, and what actually is evidence that you can use to further your proof of the paranormal. So I've kind of tailored this towards trying to decide what your goal of investigating is. Like last weekend, I went to Missouri State University or Penitentiary, and I went there just on an idea of paranormal tourism, if you will. Didn't take any equipment, didn't take anything to do an investigation. I was just there for fun. So I had no goals at all of trying to prove anything or determine if it was actually haunted. It was strictly there for my own personal experience and to have a good time. But what I'm kind of talking about here is if you are actually going out and trying to collect evidence that you're going to put on the internet, or try to convince other people that a location is haunted, or just on a broader idea that you're going to try to convince people as a whole that paranormal events occur in general. The idea that I know you all hear it, and I do too, that people post stuff on the internet proving that ghosts exist. And of course, nothing I've ever seen has ever raised to that level of proof. And so I'm kind of talking about, what would it take? What kind of evidence you would have, kind of like if you were preparing to go to court. How would you have to protect that evidence? How would you have to prepare that evidence? And what would be evidence versus what's just kind of a clue to guide you towards further investigation?
Okay, everybody, we're going to take our first commercial break now. You're listening to Scarefest Radio. Do you feel lost in life? Do you seem to be stuck in emotions that are not yours? Is your home not the sanctuary it should be? Contact Spirit Mechanics, where they take a team approach to your metaphysical and spiritual problems. Spirit Mechanics specializes in aura cleansing, stone attunement, attachment removal, and house cleansings. Spirit Mechanics tailors their approach to your individual spiritual path and needs. Find them every month at Lexington, Kentucky's Mystical Fair, mysticalfairlex.com, or on Facebook by searching Spirit Mechanics, that's MECHANIX. Spirit Mechanics, for your spiritual health and well-being. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio. Gonna turn it over here to Ken Boggle in just a moment. First though, we have our first celebrity announcement of this lovely evening. And I just want to say, I told you the chat room would be full tonight when I let it out that we had celebrity announcements. There's people in there I don't even know. So that's great. Glad everybody came out to listen tonight. Our first celebrity announcement, never been to Scarefest before, but I hear he's a big thing in the B-movie field when it comes to horror. Mr. John Bloom. Mr. John Bloom, who, of course, came up with the character. Joe Bob. What was the last name that he used? I done forgot the last name that he used. But anyway, but he goes to the he writes books about B movies and stuff. But he was on TNT with Joe Bob's Drive-In Theater, Monster Vision, Joe Bob Briggs. God, I can't believe I forgot that. Joe Bob Briggs. But yes, Mr. John Bloom is in fact, and they say he is a hoot, Ken. They say this guy is funnier. Believe it or not, they tell me he's funnier than I am. Over to you.
Well, I mean, it's a very odd thing. I mean, can there be such a thing? Now, I'm a little shocked because I looked at his IMDb and it said he had died in January of 90-something or other. So I was like, who the F is this guy? But they say he's in all kinds of like movies, and he's a reasonably intelligent person. And I don't know. I've not met him. I don't know much about him, but I'm excited to kind of find out more. So I'll be visiting his booth at the Scarefest. And by the way, Wes, I find it very hard to believe anybody could be funnier than you. Every time you open your mouth, I'm astounded. Every time.
Do you have any idea how that sounded just now? Anyway, if anybody wants the IMDb, he was in Casino, he was in Face Off. So he's actually done The Stand. There's some horror chops for you. He was in The Stand. He played a sheriff, I believe, or a deputy. But yeah, he was in that. So legitimate actor. But they say that this guy is just. I'll put it this way: if I had a budget, I could do what he does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you had a budget, you could take over the world. So, Chad, let's talk a little bit about how, and you're going to have to help me understand this. How did you go from investigating financial fraud to applying this to the paranormal? Like, really? Like, what part of you was like, okay, I can connect these things?
I grew up with a big interest in the paranormal. My family's from Eastern Kentucky, so I grew up sitting.
Where in Eastern Kentucky?
Whitesburg.
Oh my God, I used to get in trouble in Whitesburg. We'll talk after the show. We smoked funny cigarettes. I went to a place called the Apple Shop. It was just, we got loaded. You were probably there. I don't remember, but go ahead.
Well, I grew up here in Lexington, but my family's from up there. I spent a lot of time up there in the summers, but sitting on the porch, listening to my grandmother and my great aunts talk about just the lore of Eastern Kentucky, ghost stories and stories about haints, as they say.
Yeah.
So I kind of grew up with that interest. It always appealed to me. I kind of just started reading about it more and more all through my adolescence. And as I got more and more opportunities, I tried to get any haunted place I could get into. And then my career led me down this path. It was kind of unexpected. I started out as a banker. So it was kind of unexpected that I made a transition about 17 years ago into more of an investigative field. And so as I started learning those skills and stuff, I started kind of applying them over to, you're collecting data and evidence in both places. So it just kind of became a fit that they meshed together in some way.
Okay, so that totally works for me. But now, connected to Scarefest, did someone reach out to you and say, okay, we totally have to have a fraud investigative person, or did you see it and say, okay, I'm going to apply for that?
Well, I've been to Scarefest every year, just as an attendee.
Oh, okay, great.
And so I go every year for the seminars, for the panels, so that I can try to learn from everybody else that's there. So
And I have to point out, Ken, it goes back to what I say. If you go to Scarefest enough, they will give you something to do.
Yeah, but I was really happy because I had no recollection of him being on any panel, and I had that was like, I've attended a lot of those meetings, and I was like, where the F was this man? So that's cool. So you were like, okay, I'm gonna submit an application and see if it bites. So that's great. We're always looking for sponsors, and we're looking for team leads and volunteer wranglers. If you're interested, as a bonus, we can offer you a position in that. So now, talk to me a little bit about if you can, share as much information as possible without getting in trouble. Have you ever hooked like a big fraud? Have you ever like uncovered a huge, major scam that everybody was like, well done, Chad, like this is the most amazing thing ever?
I can't get too in detail, mainly just because there's a lot of paperwork involved in talking about my employer on a broadcast. There's nothing super secret about it, but I have been involved in some both administrative, civil, and criminal cases.
Was it Martha Stewart?
It was not.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
They took my girl down.
She was railroaded, I tell you.
She was. There she was, petting a chow, making biscuits and apple scones, and they cuffed her, dragged her off. It was amazing.
I know, but if not for that, she would have never got hooked up with Snoop Dogg. So I mean,
right. Well, they both did time, right?
I know.
Yeah, and now she's on QVC doing very well. I've digressed. Anyway, so let's carry on. Which, by the way, her homeware is it's amazing. I'm buying it as we speak. Now, let's talk about a little bit about sort of what people can expect from the seminar. Yeah, we know we're going to talk about frauds and things like this, but like, are there any key points that you can share with us tonight?
I'm going to talk about how to collect digital evidence and how to preserve it in a way that if anybody questions where it came from in the future, you can support it. I know we all collect audio evidence and then manipulate it on the computer so that we can hear it better. But I'm trying to talk about things like how to maintain a forensic copy of that so that if you do get that golden piece of evidence that's going to prove something, you have a piece of evidence or a piece of data that you can go back and an expert can then prove that you haven't changed it. Things like that. And kind of the difference between, things like that are actual evidence and proof and things that are, interesting phenomenon like EMF meters and things like that there's really no scientific support that those are telling you where a ghost are, but hey, they might give you a clue as to where to do more research at because, there's certainly some suggestion that they might be telling us something, but we just can't prove that right now. So you can't really use that as proof that you found something, but maybe it can point you in a direction of where to investigate further. Kind of compare that to in criminal cases, and they talk about this all the time on TV, polygraph test. They do polygraph tests all the time in criminal cases, but it's not admissible in court. So you're kind of using that as a clue as to how to proceed with your investigation, but it's not really evidence that you can use to prove your case.
Good to know. My attorneys did not make me aware of that. So we're going to have to talk to Ted about that later. Oh, shit. Well, sorry, my microphone fell. We'll have to talk to Ted about that later and see what we can do about not allowing ourselves to participate in another polygraph test, because that was a real fuckover. Anyway, so let's talk about it happened. I dropped my microphone, said S, so now I'm on to the F. Let's talk about also a little bit about your experience doing this sort of speech engagement. Have you done a lot of speaking engagements before?
I've spoken before, mainly on kind of what we started off this interview on is mainly how to avoid fraud and what to do if you're a victim of fraud and that sort of thing. That's been my major emphasis on public speaking before. So this will be my first paranormal speak.
Oh, okay. Are you nervous?
Always. I know such good people at Scarefest that it makes me a little more comfortable. So.
Well, you should introduce me to a few. So, because I'm in the market. Now, I'm interested in sort of kind of the audience that you're going to draw, because on one side you're going to have the real hardcore skeptics that are like, okay, well, we need to take notes so that we can bust someone's balls. But then you're also going to have like a couple of people who are ready to bust yours. Are you prepared for that?
I hope so. I think I can answer the questions that come at me, and I'm not afraid to say I don't know. I have to do that in my career every day. There's certainly stuff I don't know, and I'm willing to go research and find an answer later. But you know, I'm interested to see what kind of questions come that way so that I can address them the best I can, or get back to them. I'm happy to take notes and get back to somebody later with an answer to their question.
Oh, they're going to come at you with a pitchfork and a lit torch. It's going to be on these. I mean, because they take their skeptics really. I mean, they're pretty intense about that kind of a thing. And then the hardcore investigators will be messaging you on Facebook like at 3 o'clock in the morning, wanting more details. Like, this is going to just ruin your life. I hope you're prepared.
I hope I am prepared, and I do want it to be clear. I'm not coming in from a skeptic standpoint. I'm not going to try to debunk anybody. I just want to make it clear that there's a way to preserve your evidence so that if somebody is coming after you, you can back it up by preserving it the right way.
Well, one more question, then I'll turn it back over to Wes. I was wondering if there were any paranormal shows that you've watched that you have heard something or seen something that just did not pan out, or something that just did not make sense, that you were like, oh, fraud, or if you ever experienced that, just being from an audience perspective?
From the shows,
and if so, what shows were they? I'm going for the Diane Sawyer tonight, kids. We're really going to bring it home.
I will say that that years ago there were some that I would question more. Nowadays, I think they're much more quick cuts and reaction shots, so it's really hard to tell if there is anything going on or what they're reacting to, so it would be hard to make a determination. They really don't even show evidence review in most of the shows anymore, so it would be hard to tell if there's anything going on or not.
Well, that's I guess that's why that ball keeps rolling, isn't it? I guess that's why the ball keeps rolling, and thank God it does, because what else would we do for money, Wes?
Yeah, money?
I mean, like...
Money? I'm sorry, what? Money? Everybody, you're listening to Scarefest Radio. We're going to go ahead and take our second commercial break. When we come back, I will have another celebrity announcement, and we will go ahead and do our ticket giveaway on the Facebook. I'm getting ready to actually upload a banner, just because apparently nobody bothers sharing tonight's show again tonight. So what the hell?
Coyote Chris Sutton.
Shamanism.
Spiritual advisement.
Paranormal investigations.
Inspirational presentations.
Bringing light to the darkest places for over 20 years. Go to CoyoteChris.com to learn more. And welcome back to Scarefest Radio. And I'm dicking with my computer. Sorry for the stumbling here. The next celebrity announcement, a Scarefest favorite. He has been there. He is still one of the people, a gentleman that people ask for every year. Mr. Sid Haig. Mr. Sid Haig is coming. Of course, known for House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yes.
Devil's Rejects. I don't remember him in Kill Bill. He was in Kill Bill. I do not remember him in Kill Bill. But definite star power coming to you via Mr. Sid Haig. And so the one contingent can quit bitching that we don't. That's somebody we haven't had for a while.
Oh, please, like they'll ever stop bitching. But now the thing that's really, I think, great about Sid is that it's he's got great star power, and he's a really great name, and he does have his own following, this huge kind of very devoted following. But I think the most impressive thing about him is how he engages with the crowd while he's there. Don't you think, Wes? Like, people leave his booth and they have had the exact experience they came for.
The only thing I know about that part of it is because I've not really observed it, but I know everywhere he goes, there is I'll put it this way, apparently he is not shy about taking the selfie. Everybody,
no.
Everybody
not
has
at all.
A picture with
now, I don't know if you've noticed it, but he gets a fair amount of tail, too. Like, these young ladies are all up on it.
No, Ken, I did not notice that.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe
that is not something.
Maybe
none of my business. None of my business.
Look, I'm just thinking that maybe if you want more tail, in your selfies, you should maybe star in something Rob Zombie does.
Did you even look to make sure he's not married?
No, not at all.
Because
I bought him a drink once. We had a moment. That's as far as.
Okay, I was just saying, what if he's married and she listens to the show? It could happen. It could happen. Anyway. Okay, let's do we're going to do our contest, and then I'll check back on it here in just a little while after we talk a little bit more with our guest, Mr. Chad Harlan, fraud investigator. Under the banner that I just posted, so you might have to refresh your page, it says contest time above the banner for tonight's show. I want somebody to post stories about haints. Stories about haints. A quote from Chad Harlan, and you must, yes, spelling is necessary. I want to see the word haint, H-A-I-N-T. So there. And I might just make you tell me what a haint is, just because most of you kids probably never heard that word. But stories about haints. You don't know, do you, Ken? Oh, I know.
My God,
your grandmother had
my granny used to say that I'd roll up in bed next to her because there were only so many bedrooms in her tiny little house, and I'd cuddle up next, and she'd pat her ass, and she'd say, "Now climb up next to Granny, get up next to Granny," and I would. She'd say, "You got two options. I can either tell you a story about a haint, or I can tell you a story about." Something ridiculous, going to Gatlinburg or whatever. And I'd always say, "Haint, Granny, tell me a story about the haint." And she always told the same one about the woman who got hit in the head with a frying pan and then came back to haunt her husband that had killed her. That's her favorite haint story.
Hey, everybody's got a haint story, though. Everybody. I don't believe in ghosts, but I have a haint story. Okay, back to our guest. It keeps popping up. Someone is typing, and nothing is coming up. Haint, H-A-I-N-T. That's all you got to. Stories about haints, people. It's not complicated. Chad. Now, first of all, don't let Ken scare you away. I've never seen anybody get lynched. I have seen people make all kinds of outlandish claims at Scarefest, and the bodies are easily found. So, something interesting that you talk about EMF meters. And I agree with you. They're telling us something, but we don't even know what they're... That's good enough, Emily. Emily Unthank actually went in and she made up this whole story behind it. Homeless hitchhiker that kills cats. So I'm going to... Because for imagination alone, Emily Unthank, you are tonight's winner. Back to my guest, Chad Harlan. Now, I find that with most of the things we do equipment-wise in the paranormal field, they're telling us something, but I don't think most people in the field, and I don't mean all, but I don't think the majority of them, well, first of all, there's about 20% they just see blinky lights, that they're happy. But they don't know even what they're measuring. I've had people on especially on the celebrity hunts that I've gone on. They'll walk up to me with some device and they'll start telling me, I say, "Whoa, explain this to me like I'm a fifth grader. I want to know what that little thing does." And a lot of times, it tells me where ghosts are, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's there's new stuff coming out. I mean, it seems like every few months there's some new piece of equipment. And it's would be almost impossible to keep up with it. But everybody seems to have to go out and buy it as soon as it comes out and run around in dark places and see what it is. So, like you said, there's some of it that may be telling us something, but there's not enough research to know what it's telling us. So I think it's a fascinating thing to keep researching and see what it does and what it's telling us. But I think there's a...
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think there's a definite line, though, between saying that, like you said, the blinky lights are maybe telling us something and saying that they're proof of something.
See, but that has been my complaint since early, because I got in the field early enough that we at least had an excuse for not knowing exactly what we were measuring with an EMF detector. But I own 6 of them, so there, full disclosure. But I quit using them because I figured out that they're tuned to a wall socket. I mean, they tell you the power of EMF at a certain frequency. Now, because of harmonics, that frequency may not be anywhere close to what you're measuring. So that's been my complaint, is we're still using those same tools that we were using back when I got into it, and they're not telling us any more now than they were then. So I'm not seeing the advancement in that area of the field. Right now, all the advancement, if you want to call it that, are phone apps, introducing various types of contamination into the audio environment to create sounds or words or whatever. And I'm not saying that's not valid, but maybe it's out there, maybe somebody can correct me, but I'm not seeing anybody do the part of it where we're going to find out what a ghost is, assuming there is such thing as a ghost. But I don't think you're going to find that. I don't think they're going to tell us over your shack hack.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's another good example of there's, and that's one of the things I kind of talk about in the presentation of there's shack hacks and ghost boxes and Frank's boxes, and we know that occasionally they say a word. We don't really know why. We don't know what's causing it. And we know somebody's put this piece of equipment together, but we don't know what entity may or may not be interacting with that. Again, it may be a clue of where to investigate further. But as far as raising to the level of evidence of a haunting, I think it may fall a little short on that. But it's something that I think is fascinating to keep investigating, keep using, and keep seeing where it leads us in the future. But I think we're going to have to rely on, more tangible evidence if we're ever going to, document and start, like you said, figuring out, what a ghost is and how we're going to actually measure it.
See, we need to break the field down into sections, I guess you could say, because a lot of people are perfectly happy for the experience, and they call themselves ghost hunters, and I have no problem with that. That's 80% of what I do now. I quit buying equipment. I got tired of spending. I would probably be divorced now if I was still doing field work, because like I said, 6 EMF detectors. I was up to 16 cameras at one time. 16.
But do you think that's really the reason why you'd end up divorced? Where's Anita right now?
I'll put it this way: it would probably, if not divorced, it would probably be the focus of my murder trial. So anyway, yeah. So now, Ken, you done threw me off track. I don't remember what I was talking about. But on the equipment,
well, I'll say I think you were making a valid point. I think there is a difference, and people have to recognize why they're doing what they do. If your goal is paranormal tourism, like I kind of talked about earlier, you want to go to Waverly Hills and see if something spooky happens, none of what I'm going to talk about really matters to you, because you're just going to walk around in the dark and see if something crazy happens. It doesn't matter how you document that. If your goal is to go help people who are having problems at a house, again, all you need to do is find out what's happening in that house and convince the family and try to help them be more comfortable with what's going on. What I'm talking about is somebody whose goal is to try to move the field forward by documenting and proving what's going on so that we can maybe better understand it and better measure and have more understanding. As opposed to, like I said, I last weekend went on a paranormal tourism trip. I took no equipment, no meters, no nothing. I just went to see the location as much as anything. So there's different reasons to go do this, and I think each of those necessitate a different approach.
I do have a recurring thing that I say to people when they talk about, proof of the existence of ghosts. No, okay. We need, and you alluded to it, we need to learn the difference between proof and, if you want to use the word evidence, fine. I prefer the word data. But when we have proof, if you capture proof of of ghost, then it will be on CNN and Wolf Blitzer will be going, shit, there's ghosts now. So I know, that's how I know that every time I read that headline, it hasn't happened. So I'm 100% on board with you. Do you think, and this might go into the paranormal enthusiast, but there's a lot of people out there, and there's very few of them that I would call serious researchers. But one of the things I hear all the time is, I heard it on TV tonight, maybe we'll never find the answers. And I get so sick of that because why the hell are we looking? But do you think that is there any chance we're going to find the answers with what we're using in the field now, first of all?
I think there's always an evolution. So I don't think we'll get to the stuff that may tell us the answers if we don't start with the stuff we're using now and figure out what it does and see where that leads us to an improvement in technology.
Now before we go, now we don't have a third commercial break this hour, but we will give you your guest announcement in just a couple of minutes. Softball question. What is the single best piece of evidence that you've seen? TV or not?
I've seen some shadow people, and that's pretty much the best evidence I've seen so far is shadow people on video. I haven't seen much beyond that that's been even close to being convincing as far as data on tape. Now, I know people who've had personal experiences that are very intriguing, but that's not something you can take to me and show me. That's something that's very intriguing to hear about.
Right.
But as far as something you can put in front of me to show me is I've seen some good videos of shadow people that are very intriguing, but cannot be validated. There's no way from the data they had that I could prove that those videos were unaltered.
Now you brought up an interesting point there. Like, I am in possession of a video, and not my personal video, but they gave me a DVD copy of it, and I'm assuming they still have the original tape, but of a shadow person, as you described. Now, based on my DVD copy, I've had people look at it with big ass computers, and done all the stuff they could do. And my simple techniques, I couldn't find anything. But the one thing, nobody's found any evidence that it's faked digitally. But see, that's the thing. Even if you can provide a piece of video that is not faked, either basically through your computer or through editing or whatever, can we actually come up with video that could not be created? I mean, I've watched Chris Moon or whatever his name is walk on water, the magician. Forget his name. The guy on TV. I don't know. In other words, I've seen magicians do some really weird shit right in front of me. I can't imagine that type of evidence, photographic or video or even audio evidence, rising to the level that somebody could say, okay, just because you didn't fake it this way, that it wasn't faked that way.
And that's a good point. No case has ever built on...
Chris Angel. Okay, thank
Chris
you.
Angel. That's a good point. No case is ever built, though, on a single piece of evidence. So if I'm putting together a financial case, I can't use one check. It's going to be one check plus the rest of the bank records, plus I'm going to interview a witness who was a victim. So that one video may not be enough. That may be a good video, but then you're going to go back and find 2 or 3 witnesses that may have saw it. A photograph that was there too, an EMF that was there. You're going to go actually inspect the area. So it'll be a sum of the total. It won't ever be one piece of evidence that ever convinces anybody.
I'll go along with that. Okay, I'm going to do our celebrity announcement now, right in the middle of the conversation, but it's very, very pertinent to the conversation we're having. They're some of our favorites. They've been God knows how many times, but people keep wanting them to come back. So yes, they are coming back. Mr. Steve Gonzalez and Dave Tango. Steve and Dave from television's Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters Academy, if you want to count that against them.
Well, they've got. I got to meet them for the first time year before last, Steve and Dave, and I'm going to tell you something. I think they're just stand-up guys. I think they are just 2 of the coolest kids in the business. They just do not give a shit whether you believe in what they're saying or not. They don't care if you watch the show. You just stand in line, you shake their hand, and they treat you like, you're a long-lost frat brother of some kind. It's very, I mean, I just love them as personalities in general. But I've yet to be in a situation where I've got them cornered and drunk, because that's really what I'm after.
They can hold their liquor. That's part of the problem. I've been around them after they've been drinking for hours on end, and they're still pretty stand-up guys. My favorite story with Steve and Dave, and I've told it before on the air, so yes, I'm repeating myself. Last year on Saturday night, we were all in the sports bar next to the convention, and Nita wanted to go. She was ready to go to bed, so she was leaving, and so I went over to them and I said, "My wife is leaving. She wanted to meet you all," and she said that because she's leaving, you 2 were in charge.
Oh, God.
Now, okay, they were cool about it then, but then literally 5 minutes later, they snuck the fuck out of the bar.
But you know where they ended up, right?
Now that night I don't.
Oh, well, we'll talk later.
Okay, well, maybe did they go down to the other bar?
No, I hear they end up in the same place every year.
Okay, maybe.
We'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk.
Wherever I don't care where they ended up. The point is, they did not say, "Oh, Wesley, bye. Sorry, we couldn't say it right now." Shh.
But I think I could really go toe to toe with them with an alcoholic beverage. I think I could really hold it at least until like 3:15, 3:30. Now you obviously could go all night. Now I have to bow out somewhere around 3 something. I have to bow.
Ken, I've seen you in action. You bowed out last time at 2 a.m. Then at 4, here you come strolling through the lobby. Like the runner who sat on the park bench for 15 minutes. I mean, it was incredible. I didn't think I'd find him alive, Chad, and here he is, just strolling along. So anyway, we got a few more. You should really interview Chad now, Ken.
Well, so Chad, I was wondering from your perspective, your fraud finding mind, what you think of the radio skipping channel kind of devices where the radio skips at such a fast rate and you never land on one station for too long, and then you suddenly get these answers to questions or names and that kind of a thing. What's your perspective on this piece of equipment?
I don't have one yet. I mean, I think they're neat and interesting, but I don't know that they're telling us anything other than they're something cool to play with. I don't have any concept really from a third party, and I'm not an engineer or a technologist really, to tell you how a ghost would manipulate that. I've said I've been in locations where they've been being used and they've produced some interesting answers, but I kind of getting back to what I've said several times is I don't think they're proof of anything because There's no way to tell how they're being manipulated.
I think they're proof of something, and Wes, I think you'll agree with me. They're proof of how fast you can drain a freaking battery. Like, those suckers will drain the life out of an Energizer or a Duracell. Don't care what you put into it. They just eat a battery
Well,
up.
they
It's
might
insane.
do it, but don't use them all damn night, and they won't. That's my complaint about them, is that the times I've seen them used, that's the night. That's all the people do. In other words,
Yeah.
they don't do the hard work of sitting in a dark room and talking to walls. They want that instant gratification. Now, I will say, for both of you, Tim Woolworth will explain to you, like you're a fifth grader, how a ghost box works. He's the only person that's ever explained it to me in a way that impressed me. So, and I'm not that hard to impress people. It's a well-known fact. But
Well, we need to have him. We do need to have him on the show then, because I need someone to sit me down and talk to me about that.
Or you can just go back through my archives and find last time I talked to him and listen to it, and all your questions will be answered.
Oh, find that on Paranormal Filler? Or where are we looking for that?
It was
Get back to me.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, Paranormal Filler, definitely. It was first about back in December or January, I think.
All right, cool. I'm down. Okay, so Chad, if people were to want to find you and get involved in what you could offer them as investigators, where would they locate you?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, just under Chad Harlan.
So you're not willing to give like a personal phone number out, or
Call Wes. He knows how to find me.
Wes gets enough phone calls, believe it.
I change my number every goddamn week.
So yeah, I mean, now you yourself, you got any kind of like a YouTube channel or anything like this? And
I don't. I'm really just a person doing this. I'm not got anything to promote really. Just my own personal interest.
Well, first time ever, Wes, that we've ever had someone that didn't have an ass load of shit to promote.
Speaking of promotion, because you brought it up,
it.
everybody, I am going to do one last little plug here. Gone off topic. I have a TV show. It looks exactly like this one, only without Ken. Although later in the month, he will be on there. Later in the month. But Gone Off Topic, it's on the Vidi Space Network, thehaunted.space, if you want more information. We did our premiere last week, and it freaking crashed and burned. That night, even Skype had a 3-second delay. Everything, it was not meant to be last week. So I'm not going to blame Vidi Space for it, because from the time I sat down to the computer, nothing worked. And so we're just going to pretend last week did not happen. But every Tuesday night, 10 p.m., on thehaunted.space, you can find Gone Off Topic, and I did want to get that plug in there. Chad, of course, I've given Tim Woolworth his plug on the Ghost Box. I had something else to ask you about equipment. Now this is how I always got around it when I collected data. I always put it out there as, this is what we found, what do you think? I tried not to lead people too much, even though some of it I thought was pretty damn good. But how would you tell an investigative team the best way to present their data in a way that they would not be accused of fraud?
Well, like you said, if you're looking for independent analysis of it, that's exactly right. You send it out and say, please look at this and tell me what you find. You give no leading information about timestamps or occurrences that you think may be there. As far as protecting the integrity of it, as far as making sure it's not been altered or anything, as soon as you collect it on whatever device, I recommend burning it to a CD and closing the session. A lot of people maintain it on a computer, but then it's always alterable. As long as it's on a CD on a closed session, that's a static file then. Can't be changed anymore. So then no matter what you do to the copy on your computer, at least you have one clean copy that's never been messed with. So whoever looks at it, whoever analyzes it in the future, If they say that it's been changed or altered, you can always go back to the original that's never been tampered with, and it's the metadata and it's protected from the day you made it. So things like that. Make sure you're just preserving it that way, so that whoever looks at it, it's got a clean copy, and you can't be accused of changing it after the fact.
When you said about putting it out there for independent analysis, of course this is not real analysis, but I get tickled every time I see somebody post something on Facebook and then say, "What do you think?" And and everybody that says, "I think it's the wind," or "I think it's a shadow from a car going by," unfriend. So I had to get that.
Yeah, nobody wants real opinions. People just want to be supported.
Yeah, they want. Ooh, good catch. Learn those words in the paranormal field if you want to have friends. Good catch. This has been Scarefest Radio. I think we've had a good night tonight. To recap, John Bloom, Sid Haig, Steve Gonzalez, and Dave Tango will be at Scarefest 2018, Scarefest 11, Scarefest Rebirth. Congratulations to Emily Unthank on Facebook for using the word "haint" in a complete sentence. That's what she wins for. And everybody, we'll be back next week. I hope the audio and video were great tonight. I hope you enjoyed the show.